Hey, fabulous. Welcome to the Hope and Healing with Terri podcast. I'm your host, Terri Donahue, a mental health professional certified in trauma informed care and crisis intervention. This is a space for women walking through healing while raising the next generation. We'll talk about real life issues like trauma, online dangers, and even family patterns, always with a dash of hope. A sprinkle of grace and a touch of Jesus. Whether you're here for guidance, encouragement, or healing, I'm so glad you pressed play. Let's get started. So, today we're talking about a topic I'm pretty sure most people want to avoid. And if you want me to be honest with you, I'm one of those people. In fact, it's taken me months to work on this podcast because it's just not something that we want to hear. But the reality is 44% of kids access porn on their school issued computers, and one third of students stated they saw porn on social media apps. Therefore, talking about porn is not a subject that we can ignore. This exposure may be accidental, but there are also people targeting kids and it's used for grooming. Okay. Um, However, the majority of kids are seeing it by accident and some as young as 6 years old. Based on all the research I've done for this podcast, I have enough content to do multiple episodes, but we're going to keep it to two, okay? Because nobody wants to hear that much about porn, am I right? So the next episode is actually going to be about relationships and porn and kind of how porn affects relationships. So today we're going to focus on three areas of concern: grooming, mental health, and aggression. In 2023, the porn industry had a revenue of 13 billion. That's billion with a B, y'all. Pornhub, the largest website to view content, has included minors being assaulted. I do hope when something like that is put on there that it is taken off very quickly, but I honestly have no idea. We live in a fallen world, and as much as we want to believe things like that are not happening, they are. Our kids are being exposed to things. My opinion is that children are a gift from God, and it is our job to protect them the best that we can. And that includes protecting their eyes from seeing things like this. Um, if they're not mature enough to guard their hearts and they're not mature enough to guard their mind and their eyes, we kind of have to step in as a responsibility to do the best that we can for them. Because John 10:10, one of my verses that I say all the time, I always say that the enemy came to kill, steal, and destroy, and children and families are the biggest target. But I actually looked up the verse so I could tell you word for word because I paraphrase things, right? But John 10:10 states, "The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life." I don't know about you guys, but I would rather have the rich and satisfying life. Okay. So, child predators have purposely exposed children to porn for grooming purposes and exploitation. In fact, sexting has been linked to porn exposure. If you want to learn more about sexting, you can check out episode 5. Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped at the age of 14 and sexually abused. I read an article where she spoke out against porn. Her abuser was a porn viewer, and he would assault her after viewing aggressive porn. As pornography becomes more socially acceptable, society becomes more hypersexualized. I don't know about y'all, but I think we live in a hypersexualized society. This increases the demand for sex trafficking of women and children. If you want to learn more about sex trafficking, check out episode 4. By the way, this is episode 7. I can still keep up because we're only on 7, right? So, exposing children to pornography is child abuse. It is. In fact, it is deemed sexual abuse. Pornography robs children of their innocence and it can expose them to being victims of child pornography, which will have a lasting impact on their overall well being. A person watching child pornography is more likely to act out against a child. Sadly, there are increasing reports of assaults where the predator and the victim are both under the age of 18. Exposure to porn increases that likelihood. Easy access and frequency of viewing porn can lead to this behavior. I work with people who have been victims of sexual abuse or assault. I would say about a little over a year ago, I got an unexpected phone call. I was at the hospital with my mom, waiting for her to have something done. And while in the waiting room, I got a call from somebody who knew kind of the field in which I work. And I was not, when I answered the phone, I was not thinking this is where we were going, right? So her child, she had caught him sneaking porn and other sexual content. In asking questions and probing further, I found out he was exposed to porn by another child who sexually assaulted him. Okay. It reminded me of a conversation that I'd had a few years prior. Actually, I could have been like 5 years ago, maybe more, before I was actually working in this field. And it was shocking to me, as I'm sure it's about to be shocking to all of you. But another little boy who was around 8 or 9 was being assaulted by another child a few years older than him. So again, this child's not even very old either. And I don't know then what questions to ask. Like when I was told that information, I was just kind of like a bystander listening to somebody's story. I didn't know what to ask. I was genuinely shocked by the conversation. Um, the assaulters in both of these cases are boys under the age of 14. Like these are young kids. These are real life situations that may be affecting somebody you know, possibly even your own family. So stay tuned because I'm going to share some resources for help. And I really do hope that this is not something that you and your family has had to deal with. But 1 in 5 boys are sexually assaulted or abused by the age of 18, and 1 in 3 girls are sexually assaulted or abused by the age of 18. That's a lot. So, and porn can be a factor in that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but it can be. So exposing children to porn makes their these behaviors seem normal and acceptable. People are exposing them or setting them up for a lifetime of shame and guilt, possibly even sexual deviant behavior, or being the victim of physical abuse or child trafficking. Um, so things that we can do to prevent this is put filters on phones and computers. These filters also monitor things like suicidal ideation. So again, these are things we don't want to talk about, but these are things that we need to talk about. These are things we need to talk about with our children. So I had an again, another unexpected conversation of this because again, 44% of kids are being exposed to porn on their school issued computers. They are accessing it. And I know some of this is making it seem like people are just constantly putting them in front of porn. That's not the case. A lot of times it is accidental. And based on all the research that I've read, it is happening as young as 6. Like that is not uncommon, which is crazy to me. I cannot even imagine a 6-year-old coming across that, but it is not uncommon. So these filters will filter things more than just sexual content. I also saw where one dad put filters on their child's phone and their child lost access to a game that they played on their phone. And it wasn't the game. There was nothing wrong with the game. The problem was the ads for the game. So when he put the filters on, he saw that the ads for the game, and that's why he took it off. So, you know, there's those things, but also exposure to porn affects mental health in a negative way. And mental health is kind of a word that we talk about often, at least I do because I work in that field, right? But there's so many things that can affect children, and this is one that hopefully you can control and keep away from your kids. But girls exposed to porn typically have increased body issues with higher or more negative body image issues, and they also have, decreased positivity about their bodies. Porn usage generates feelings of isolation and loneliness. The more it's viewed, the higher the rate of anxiety and depression. I don't know about you, but I think there's a lot of things being thrown at kids today. They don't need an increase in anxiety and depression coming from porn. So we live in a world where anxiety and depression it's already rampant. Like we don't need to do anything to add to it. So our kids do not need anything else in their lives affecting their mental well-being. We are our children's biggest advocates and we are called to protect them. That includes their mind, body, and spirit. They are not old enough to make these decisions, nor are their brains fully developed to make these choices. In fact, the frontal lobe is not fully developed until around the age of 25. So there's a lot of things affecting their mental health. So other things that can come with this is like shame. We talked about anxiety and depression, but another thing is aggravation. I was listening to a video, and it was a Christian guy kind of sharing about he and his wife got married as virgins. Okay, so they'd never been with anyone else before, but he had watched porn and he regretted that because when he and his wife had, sex on their wedding night, he was really aggressive and she kind of called him out on that. And he realized that was why, because he had been watching porn. So also, evidence shows that kids who are more aggressive in school towards teachers and things like that, they are children who are exposed to porn. So, boys are more likely to access porn than girls, but I don't think I finished my story. So, I got a call from one of my son's friends' moms, and she let me know that her son had actually, when they cleaned his laptop from last school year, they found that he had been accessing porn. So he throws all the other kids under the bus and was like, everyone else does it too. So this was a great time for me to have a conversation with my son. And I'm thankful to say I've searched everything that he has, and I have not seen anything where he's done that. And he was just like, I haven't done that. I was like, I honestly didn't think that he had, because again, we try to have these conversations, and it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. I don't like to have these conversations with my teenage son, and I'm sure that you guys don't want to either, but we need to have conversations younger than probably what we think, because they are exposed to things. So the other statistic is I work with a lot of kids because I've done I work with a lot of kids in mental health, but I have worked in police social work, and I have worked with clients, and I've noticed a pattern of very aggressive teenagers. And it made me recall something that I had heard about a parent or neighbor. I don't recall. Sorry, it's not my story. But the child was, they were being, police were being called out because the child was very aggressive. And then the whoever called was talking about how they're watching porn, and then didn't think that the officer, again, this is something I read, didn't think the officer was taking it seriously. Well, now that I've done my research, I understand that, yeah, that porn usage could have been causing this child to be more aggressive. So another thing is, it affects like teenage relationships, because it can increase the likelihood of boys thinking they are like dominant over girls, or that they could be more abusive, they could be more vulgar, they could be more like demanding of how their girlfriend acts, like how she's supposed to dress or say or do or anything, because they think they have dominance over women. And so I think that we all know as we get older that is not the case. I want you to teach your daughters that that's not true. Like, I don't want them to be a victim of abuse. So this is something I teach my nieces. I don't have a daughter, but I've taught my niece this. So again, not a great topic, not something that people want to talk a lot about, but porn is out there and kids are able to access it. So I have some notes. Let me find them. Okay. So I'm going to share some information from the Barna group. Okay. And I'm probably going to read it. So the more a person views porn, the higher their level of negative self perceptions, such as critical of self, anxious about important decisions, afraid to fail, and more easily overwhelmed. It increases the need to be perfect, it increases depression, and the thoughts that life isn't worth living. So, again, the more a person is viewing porn, the more dissatisfied they are altogether with life. And I said I was going to do a second episode with relationships, but I'm not. I'm just going to throw it in here and give you a little bonus. Um, the more a wife perceives her husband watching porn, the more negatively she believes the relationship is. The more negative she is about herself, even though if she's not watching it, and the more negative she feels about the relationship. So porn affects relationships. I've known people who have lost relationships over porn. I also know people who have a porn addiction, who their wife has helped them through it. Now, men are not the only ones watching porn. There are a lot of women who are watching porn also. In fact, there's now a thing about um porn made by women that's more kind to women, I guess you could say. I cannot think of the word right now, but it's not as derogative towards women. So there's that. But there's different ways that can be helped. Okay. Churches can help. Um, they have provide programs. Not all, there actually probably needs to be more who do, because there's probably more porn usage than most of us realize. Well, actually, I know that's true based on all the research that I just did. Um, Talk about it. Y'all, the more that people don't talk about things in their life, the more shame they have towards that, and the more guilt they have, and the more it affects their mental health. Okay. So find somebody you trust. Don't talk to just anybody, because we don't want to open the floor to gossip, but find someone that you trust. And then therapy. Like, obviously, I'm a huge advocate of therapy, and it's a real need. Like, people, one of my friends that called me needing therapy for her child, she was like, I don't want it to be known if he goes into the military that he went to therapy. And this is a person who is a believer. So I said, can I ask you a question? And I said, if you believe God wants your child in the military, do you believe that he will make sure that happens? And she said, yes. And I said, then get your son the help that he needs. So I'm going to tell you that just as much. So more things that I've learned, because y'all, I'm ADHD and I talk in circles, so we're not staying on task, I'm sure. But more things I've learned is that porn is just not pictures and videos anymore. Okay. AI has made it more interactive. AI is happening everywhere, and it has made it more personalized. Okay. So we have a generation of people, not just kids, there's adults too, who don't know how to make friendships. Like, they don't know how to make friends, they don't know how to be in a relationship or anything else. Well, if AI is personalizing your porn to your needs, your desires, what you like, um, people are in a relationship with that. I mean, I've used Chat GPT for things, and I laugh because I say thank you. Okay. And some bad things have come out about Chat GPT too. I don't know if you read the article or saw it about Chat GPT helping somebody, a teenager, plan their suicide and even encourage them along the way. So it's dangerous. So it's not something I want my kid on. It's something I've used, but I know that when it's overly complimentary, I'm like, okay, whatever. I kind of roll my eyes and keep going, right? So, so kids are feeling like they're getting a personal connection, and they're not. Like, this is not a real person. This is an online thing. It's artificial intelligence, right? And so it's dangerous, it's counterfeit, it's reshaping how relationships are, how kids see relationships. It is affecting their ability to build intimate relationships. It's affecting ability to be real with people. There's so much that can happen with that. So Jonathan Doherty, he is, I think, the founder of Be Broken Ministries, and Joel Warnicking is part of 423 Communities. Both of them are working with people who have had porn exposure. And so it's kind of like, I shouldn't say a rehab program, but they have a group program for if you have a family member, a friend, a child who has been exposed to porn and who does have a porn addiction or something like that. These are resources that can help them. In fact, many of the people that they've worked with say they had nowhere to go. The average age of getting help is 37, but many people are being exposed to porn between the ages of 6 and 12, and they're not getting help for it, for the way that it made them feel, the guilt that it made them feel, the anxiety, the depression, all that, the way, the self negativity. They're not getting help until the age of 37. So that's a lot of years with no help. Okay. Um, so they have programs for teenagers and adults. So people who are exposed to porn um, are tend to be more violent. They focus more on body parts. So if you have a child focusing on body parts, that might be a red flag for you. It has been dehumanizing, and it involves fantasy. It's taking you out of reality and into fantasy. People feel like they are engaging, but it's really digitally produced. So we're going back to the AI porn. Young people are longing for not just the engagement with sexually explicit material for arousal, but they are deeply hungry for a sense of intimacy. So, true intimacy is not something that you can get without another person. And intimacy and sex are not the same thing. I just want to throw that out there. Intimacy is the relationship you have with each other. Like me, I want to be with my husband. I want to hang out with him. I want to spend time with him. Like we have a connection that I want to go places with him, do things with him, things like that. So, they there are people curating a whole life with AI for their fantasy. And so this is addictive. So there's a lot of research also out there that the same part of your brain that lights up with addiction lights up with pornography because it's addiction. So it's kind of like the reward system of your brain is being lit up because they're obviously getting something out of it, or you wouldn't go back to it. Am I right? I mean, I don't go back to things I don't get something out of. So again, some things that you can look at, and I'll put them in the notes, but like filters, like there's things like bark. You can go on Google and look for filters that you can put on your computers, your phones, all the things, tablets, all the things. If your child has a school issued laptop, tablet, whatever it is, make sure it has filters on it. And if it doesn't, put one on there. Talk to the school because surely schools have got to know if they're finding out later that kids were accessing porn on there, they should know that they need to have something on there. And that's not the only child I've heard of that has accessed porn. I've heard of small children, as young as 6, who probably didn't even know what they were getting, and they've gotten in trouble in class because they have access to that. They probably even don't even know how they got to it. Now, as they get older and they've already been exposed to it and they want to see it again, they can, you know, figure out where they got it and go back for it. So so that's just a little bit of information. Porn is there. It's going to isolate people. It is going to disconnect people. It's going to affect relationships because, again, it's isolating people. It's disconnecting people. It's not keeping people in real relationships. It's keeping them in something called fantasy. So, again, want to relieve you with John 10:10. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose, which is God, is to give them a rich and satisfying life. So I'm just going to say it porn is coming to kill and steal and destroy. It's affecting families, it's affecting children, it's affecting overall mental health. So, here's the information. Use it if you would like to, but I want to provide it, even though it's a topic that most of us don't want to talk about, myself included, because who wants to talk about that, right? Granted, we've talked about on this podcast um, human trafficking and sextortion. So these are real life issues that are affecting children and families. And maybe at some point in your life you've been exposed to that, and I want you to come here to learn how to do better for your children, like maybe protect them more than somebody protected you, because the reality is there's a lot of people who've grown up without protection, and you may not know these things, you may not understand that this stuff is happening, and you want to do the best that you can for your child. And knowledge is power. Learning helps all of us, right? Because we all just want to be the best parent, best person that we can be. So, thank you for joining me today on this very interesting podcast. Also, a lot of pediatricians are now being encouraged to talk to their teenage patients and families about pornography because it has become quite a large scale problem. And again, it's affecting the mental health of children. So, I hope that you have a good rest of your day. I would love to hear from you. So if you have anything you want to say, feel free to pop a comment down and I will respond to that. And I, again, just hope that this information is useful for you and your family. And I will see you on episode 8. And now that I already talked about briefly relationships and porn, I don't know what episode 8 is going to be about. So I'll work on that and it'll be a surprise for all of us. So have a great day and thank you for tuning in. Bye.